Hear about it, talk about it.
Big time Rod Arquette.
I love being sandwiched between you and Rush.
I appreciate you talking about this, Rod.
With Rod Arquette on Talk Radio 105.7 FM, 570 AM.
You know, isn't it funny today, in this world in which we live of instant communication, instant access to things, that one nut job with a video camera can cause so much turmoil in the world. If you think about it, I mean, boil this all down. If, in fact, and I'm not convinced this is the case, but if, in fact, this movie about the Prophet Muhammad is what is triggering all the protests in the world, is pretty amazing, is it not? One guy with a video camera who's got a bone to pick, and he's causing the turmoil and the disruption that is taking place in the Middle East right now against the United States of America. In places like Libya, Egypt, Yemen, all over the place. That part of the world in turmoil, attacking the United States. Now, today, the White House, Jay Carney came out and said, no. It isn't an attack against the United States. It isn't against an attack against the policies of the United States. It isn't an attack against President Barack Obama. It's all about this movie. Others are raising questions about that. So we want to try and understand and help you understand, and myself as well, about what is, in fact, going on in the Middle East right now. And my guest on the Newsmaker line as we kick off the show today is Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. Dr. Jasser, author of a book, a brand new book out there called A Battle for the Soul of Islam. He is also founder of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. We've had him on the show before. He's always a great guest. Dr. Jasser, how are you, and welcome back to the program.
Great. It's nice to be with you again, and it's unfortunate that it's with the circumstances of our loss of life of our brave servants in Libya with our ambassador. But, this is, I think, the beginning of a new Cold War, and if we don't get it right, we will not get to a solution.
Dr. Jasser, give me your take on what is taking place here. Of course, the White House today came out and said, look, it's all about this movie. Those within the Arab world are very upset. They don't understand that here in the United States, because of our Constitution that we have and we enjoy, there is freedom of speech. Our government can't do anything about that. Others are saying, no, this is a planned assault on the United States. What's your take on it?
Well, as I just heard you talk about what Carney said for the White House, I mean, I just can't tell you how wrong they got it. Now, first of all, let me preface my comments by telling you that we have to be careful not to generalize what a few mobs are doing and say that this is the Libyan population or this is the Egyptian population. What's happening this week and last week is a byproduct of an ideological movement that is seeking to try, as a result of the vacuum from, and by the way, a very welcome vacuum from the loss of these secular fascist dictators like Mubarak and Gaddafi and others, they're trying to get themselves into position. And the main obstacle to them doing that is the best advocates for freedom, which, though I think we've been weaker than we should be and been too much of appeasers, and that is America. So what do? You find some excuse, just like they used the cartoons, they used a teddy bear called Muhammad that a teacher did a couple of years ago. They're always going to find some excuse to start, raging masses. And you can tell the people that are on the streets are different. Now it's poor, unemployed guys from 15 to 30, no women, no workers, none of the moderates. And remember, in the Arab Spring, you had millions in the streets. This is just 5,000-10,000. This is not a majority. And remember, in the Middle East, everybody knows, like my family that came from Syria, it's so easy to pay people a few bucks and get them to go do a mob scene. And the Gaddafi loyalists actually are now being proven to have stimulated some of what happened in Libya. And if you look at the Egyptian media in the weeks prior to what happened in our embassy there, they were stoking. Remember, the Brotherhood now runs the Egyptian state media. They were stoking some of this by talking about this trashy movie, which has been out, by the way, on the Internet for 2 or 3 months. It just didn't pop up recently, but they translated it now and got the masses enraged.
In your assessment right now, Dr. Jasser, how is the U.S. responding, and are we doing it the right way?
The U.S. is being challenged to respond in a way, and it is failing miserably because we don't have a policy. If we had a doctrine, which I believe in my book, I talk about the fact that we need to change the paradigm, reboot Middle Eastern policy, and create what I call a liberty doctrine, where the people on the street will start to no longer see us as the facilitators of their dictators, like the monarch of Saudi Arabia or Mubarak, who we called an ally, but yet anybody that lives there knows that while he may have certainly maintained peace with Israel, he created and tilled the soil of radicalism that created the Brotherhood and created these ideas, and all the while he also attacked them and put them in prison, etc. But they used radical Islam as a tool in order to say they have to have dictatorships and autocracies, etc. So what we need to do is not abandon the Green Revolution like we did in Iran in 2009, not abandon the freedom movements of the masses that are looking to leadership and help. I mean, look at Syria. So we've avoided Syria, and yet the longer we stay out of it, the more the strong horse is going to win and radicalize that population. I'm not saying get troops there. I'm saying at least help them fight for themselves in Syria. Egypt helped them build institutions of grassroots and no longer send billions to the very people that are spreading ideas that are against us.
How do we reach out, as you described, to the people in Egypt, the people in Libya, the people maybe even in Syria, to say, look, we do want to give you liberty and freedom. We want you to grow economically. Well, you've got a leadership there that is telling them, hate the United States. Is that fair?
Well, the way you do it is part of that strategy is going to be simply investments in technology, investments in social networks, investments in institutions that, for example, we've done this before. We had a U.S. information agency that fought an ideological war against the Soviets for decades until we finally defeated them without firing a bullet. We had hundreds and thousands in the Beltway in Washington studying communist war theory, socialist ideas, and how to fight it. And the Iron Curtain came down, and we helped through our institutional expertise and our think tanks and free market experts, help them build societies with investments that came back to be very positive and productive for companies and nonprofits and government that invested in it. And I think we can do the same, have a radio-free Saudi Arabia and counter the Al Jazeeras of the world that are allowing our identity to be manufactured for us in a way that's very anti-American, anti-Israel, full of conspiracy theories, and doesn't allow us to create our own message of freedom and liberty and tell them that it's not about America, it's about freedom for every individual, the ones that wanted freedom, that went to the streets, and now are wondering why the Brotherhood that only got 25% of the vote is now being propped up by the United States, which most Egyptians actually don't necessarily like.
Mm-hmm. Where do you see, I've got to wrap this segment up, Dr. Jasser, but where do you see this going over the next several days, several weeks, several months?
Well, it's almost like treating cancer. Sometimes the patient gets a little sicker before they get better. If we start saying that we wish the times of Mubarak and other dictators comes back, we're going to see it even get worse. But I do think that it may get a little more inflamed. We need to protect our staff that are there. We should not pull out. But once we provide enough protection either to the UN or our own forces or the government's forces, then we start to say we're going to stay here, we're going to help the right people, and we start to publicly identify what ideas and principles the groups that we help are, and why and hold the government there accountable for the principles of human rights that they either endorse or they don't, which we're not doing. All we're doing now is just saying they need to be nonviolent, and they need to basically, we're going to respect their faith. And we've been very apologetic and appeasement-oriented rather than forceful and strong to help the free thinkers.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dr. Jasser, as always, it's a pleasure to speak with you. We hope to have you back on the show sometime.
Anytime. Thanks for having me, Ron.
All right. That's Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. He is the author of the book, A Battle for the Soul of Islam, a fascinating book, an American Muslim patriot's fight to save his faith. He's also founder of the American Islamic Forum for